Hello and welcome to Mad About Superheroes, cartoon commentary of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The episode that we are watching is Casey Jones' Outlaw Hero. Said it before and I'll say it again. 80s cartoons have the most awesome intros and theme songs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is no exception to that. One of the best. The lyrics describe the cartoon series and the characters. Pretty much sums them up very well. From the Turtles to Splinter to Shredder, it's got it all in there. This, of course, originated in the Mirage comic books by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and went on to become a cartoon series and then a phenomenon with action figures and all kinds of merchandising. Even a feature-length film with the success of blockbuster success of Batman. In 1989, 1990 saw the release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. But this is in its third season. And this is one of my favorite episodes because it features one of my favorite characters in Turtles comic books, Casey Jones. And he's making his first appearance here in the cartoon series and in this episode. In the shadows, he's a crime fighter. He's busting some bad guys. Very Batman-like, or more like the Punisher. He's kind of influenced, especially like in this episode, his voice, the actor doing the voice is doing kind of a Clint Eastwood impersonation or impression. There's even a couple of references to Clint Eastwood in this, or Dirty Harry, the Dirty Harry films that were going on from like the late 70s into the mid 80s, or late 80s actually. I think the last Dirty Harry movie, the Deadpool, was in like 88 or 89. Had a little cameo from Guns N' Roses in that one, in the Deadpool. I think it's where Rob Liefeld got the idea for the name Deadpool for the character, the popular character. But Casey Jones, this is kind of like a montage of him, like going on a crime fighting spree in the city. All the goofy bad guys, incompetent bad guys. And kind of using his surroundings. He uses like a lot of sporting equipment, as his weapons, hockey stick especially. Cool design for the character. It was actually inspired. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were influenced by the movie Big Trouble in Little China in the 80s with Kurt Russell. They liked the look of Kurt Russell and that character, and they based Casey Jones on that character, as well as bad TV, old action movies, like the aforementioned Dirty Harry, Death Wish, the Punisher from Marvel Comics, stuff like that. But very cool character. I've always liked the vigilante types. And we got April O'Neil here, making her first appearance. She's trying to get some shut-eye, and her boss calls her with a story. But interesting look for April O'Neil in this cartoon series. They went with the jumpsuit that she has, that she wears in this. I think I've only seen her one time in the comic book in that outfit, and it was in her first appearance in the Turtles comic. And then the cartoon series kind of went with that, and that's been her look. It's kind of the iconic look for the character. But we got the Turtles showing up here in the sewers. They're kind of in disguise because they're going to go up above, and Casey Jones here is down there, and he mistakes the Turtles for criminals. They always have that excuse in comic books for the two kind of good guy characters to meet up and have a fisticuffs, a little fight. I never cared for, whatever the reason, it didn't matter to me. It was always cool to see, the heroes go up against each other. And we got the Casey Jones facing off against the Turtles here. Of course, happens different in the comic. He encounters Raphael in the comic books first. And they form a rivalry and friendship. And then later on, the other Turtles, meet him. And, of course, the rest is history, becomes very much a part of the Turtles lore. But this is kind of a little bit of a goofier interpretation of Casey Jones as opposed to the comic, and he he thinks the turtles are Martians, which is pretty funny. And he runs away when he sees what, because they take off their disguises, and when he gets a load of what they look like, he kind of freaks out. And we got the Shredder and Krang here. Their little plot is they got these little robot bug-looking gizmos that are going to infect and take over machines, which is pretty fun, kind of a maximum overdrive situation. I wonder if the writers of this episode were as fueled by cocaine as Stephen King was when he did Maximum Overdrive, the only film that was directed by Stephen King himself, of his work. Pretty funny, pretty wild movie. But that's what this reminds me of with the little bugs when they take over the machines. Pretty cool. And Bebop and Rocksteady here. These are cool characters. Fan favorites. They were probably. I don't really care for the Michael Bay produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action in quotation marks because they're basically CG characters. But that was probably the only aspect I liked of that second film. I think it was Into the Shadows or something like that, or Out of the Shadows. I think it was Out of the Shadows. Was that they put Bebop and Rocksteady in there, which was kind of cool, and Baxter Stockman. So that was cool. I like the comic book and cartoon, references and characters in that movie. But not a very good movie. But I did enjoy the second one probably more than the first one, just because of that. It reminded me of this cartoon series, actually, is why I liked it. But again, didn't care for that interpretation of Casey Jones, didn't keep the mask on long enough, and I thought that he was kind of miscast. I like that guy, I don't know his name, the actor that played Arrow, or Green Arrow for many years. Like him, but I think he was miscast as Casey Jones. And now we got the Turtles squaring off against Casey Jones again. He kind of goes a little too far with some of his shenanigans when facing off against criminals. So again, another excuse for him and the Turtles to go at it, which is cool. It's always funny seeing the Turtles out of their normal gear, like they're wearing like winter coats and hats and stuff and mittens. But it's fun. I like I knew the Turtles. I got to know them a little bit from the comic books first. A lot of people's introduction to Turtles was this cartoon series, but I liked the grittiness of the comic book and the goofiness of the cartoon. But there was a reference there to the Dirty Harry films again, where he said, but they didn't say Dirty Harry; it was Filthy Harry, probably for trademark reasons. And the earlier one was Casey Jones had said, "Go ahead, make my night instead of make my day," which is pretty funny. And here we go with that little plot there with the Shredder's little gizmos, the little bugs that are taking over the machines, and it's gotten April's motorcycle. It's pretty fun. It's probably was a toy because the toys were big at the time. It's a motorcycle with a camera on it, so I wonder if that was a toy. The only toys I was really interested in, because I was kind of aging out of toys at this time. But I had some of the Ninja Turtles themselves. I had those. Those were the only ones I was interested in. I never was able to get my hands on a Shredder, and of course I wanted a Casey Jones, but I wasn't able to get one. But didn't play with them. I just, kind of like what I do now. Like I collect action figures, and you just put them on a shelf, that kind of thing. I always thought the actress Lucinda Dickey, who was in a lot of the canon films, like she was in the Breaking movies, Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo and such, and she was in a movie called not Revenge of the Ninja, it was Ninja 3 The Domination. she was in that. I always thought she would have made a great April O'Neil. She kind of had the look of April from the comic books, as well as a bit of a look from the cartoon series. But alas, Turtles was made in the 90s and not in the 80s, and I don't think she was even acting around that time. But if I had casted Turtles in the 80s, but here we got the Turtles. Now they're fighting the appliances because the little bug gizmos have taken over all the machines and fighting TVs and refrigerators. Is that the George Foreman grill? Taking a bite out of Michelangelo's arm. I like the boombox too. The VHS, VCRs. That's cool. At least they're still, at this point, they were still kind of using their weapons. I mean, they don't use them against people, but they're still, using them against, like, the appliances and stuff like that. Because there was a point in the Turtles cartoons where they stopped, because, it got really, really or dumbed down or kid-friendly, or kid-friendlier, I should say. And then they stopped using their weapons, and then there was a point where Michelangelo didn't even use his nunchucks anymore. He was using a grappling hook, and it had to do with the cartoon series airing in the UK, and they outlawed nunchucks and the word ninja, and it was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, and there's a whole history behind all that stuff too. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's actually a really good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles documentary called Turtle Power that goes into in-depth, from the Turtles' history from the beginning in the comic books, to the cartoon series, the movie, and even up to more currently, where Nickelodeon or Viacom now owns Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because the original creators, after years of holding out, they finally, at one point, both co-creators sold Turtles at different points. At one point, Kevin Eastman sold his half of the property to his co-creator, Peter Laird, and then at one point, Peter Laird finally is sold to Viacom. So yeah, there's been lots of iterations of Turtles, and as far as cartoon series go, as well as comic books and everything else. But as far as the cartoon series, I really like this one a lot, and there's a lot of nostalgia attached to this cartoon series. But there was the one after this that was, I don't know if it was just called TMNT or if it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also, but it was like early 2000s, and it was very comic book accurate. A lot of the stories in that, they plucked right out of the comic books, and that was a really good series. And now we got another appearance here with Casey Jones. He's saving the Turtles' bacon. They were kind of fighting each other a little bit, but now he realizes they're on the same side, where they need his help. The appliances were overwhelming them. Overwhelming numbers of refrigerators and toasters. And so even appliances need to obey the law, according to Casey Jones. Sounds a little bit like Judge Dredd there, where I am the law. So they're gonna team up now. That was always a thing, a trope of comic books and cartoon shows based on comic books. Is you have the hero characters that first meet and they fight each other and they don't know, they think they're on the wrong side, whatever. And then there's the inevitable team up. They realize that we're on the same side. I always liked Leonardo. I like the leader types. I always thought that the two swords were pretty badass. A lot of people like Raphael, and I like Raphael. He's kind of like the standout or the fan favorite, because he's got the bad attitude. He's, tough guy thing going on, kind of like the Wolverine of the Turtles. But my favorite's Leonardo. I would say for a second would be Raphael. Always liked, in the comic books or in the movies when they would, when Leonardo and Raphael would argue, or they'd have, physical fights, like brothers do sometimes. But they never let it, they always make up in the end, which is cool. Now one of those little bugs have gotten to the turtle van. They made them drive into a lake. It's funny how like the turtles live in a sewer. They don't have jobs. Neither does Splinter, but they got all the money to buy all to make all this stuff. You know, they got all this equipment: turtle van, turtle blimp, all this high tech equipment. It's not like they're Bruce Wayne where they got all this. You know, they're rich where they got all this money to fund this stuff. Or like in the Punisher comics where he uses the money that he confiscates from from like mobsters and stuff to fund his operation. I guess we can go with that. They can't do that in the cartoon series though. It's just it's a cartoon series and you just got to suspend his belief. There was at the time Archie Comics. They had I guess they had a deal with Mirage Studios, who originally put out the Turtle comics, and they were doing. In the beginning, it was straight up just adaptations of episodes of the cartoon series in comic form, and then it was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, and then they started to branch off into their own stories, and that was a popular line of comics for a long while. I collected some of the first run. I got quite a few of those, but I also have it was kind of scattered about with my Mirage Turtles comics because I never knew like when they were coming out, or it'd always be like I would just get them sporadically. But my first Turtles comic was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #5. I still have the original printing of that. My brother brought it home for me from a comic store. He took a trip to the comics store, and he just thought it was something that I would dig, that I would get a kick out of, and he was right. And now, Casey Jones is going off on his own. They had a plan. They wanted Casey to go after the Shredder, and but he wants to go after the big guy. He wants to go after Krang. He's got this big giant robot machine that's pretty cool looking, like the design of it. Kind of looks like a spider with all the legs. Yeah, it's cool stuff. I like when he uses the hockey stick. I love Casey Jones with the hockey stick. Except now he's got like a big mallet, like the mighty Thor. A giant sledgehammer. The Krang character was kind of taken from the comic book. There's a race of alien beings that are like brains looking like that. But they're friendly aliens, and they flipped it in the cartoon series where they made it just one, and it was of course the villain that teams up with Shredder. So yeah, there's interesting some of the differences, some of the improvements and differences like from the comic book. The biggest one being that probably everybody knows is the different colored headbands. Originally in the comic, it was a black and white comic, but they had color covers, and you would see on the covers that they all had red headbands. That cover their eyes, their masks. And in the cartoon series, they made the different colors, the red and orange and blue and whatever. And then they gave them the letters on their belts. L for Leonardo, R for Raphael. The comic versions didn't have that. The only way you were able to tell them in the comic books is, of course, their different weapons or their personalities. Leonardo being the more poised of the team, the more leader type. You could tell him that way. Raphael had the bad attitude. Michelangelo the goofball, and of course Donatello's the tech guy or the gearhead. So, and then April O'Neil wasn't a reporter in the comic books. She actually originally worked for Baxter Stockman, who was also different in the comics. In this, he turns into like a fly and whatever, but that wasn't in the comic series. So yeah, I like the differences. That's why, like I said, I like the gritty turtles from the comics, and then I like the goofy turtles in the cartoons. You get a little bit different, with each thing that you watch. A lot of people complain when they stray too much from the source material. Sometimes it's good because it gives you, like I said, that difference, that flavor. it's good to get something different and not just go into something knowing everything about it, So Casey Jones got bested for a minute there by by Krang, and the Turtles, now they had to save his bacon. One good turn deserves another. After all, it is their cartoon series. Although I would love if it was the Casey Jones show, because I like the character so much. But now they got this gizmo here that's gonna send a signal or something that gets all the bugs to attack Krang, turn against him, and infect his big machine, so that way the Turtles can win the day. I like the look of that. I wonder if that was a toy. There was so many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures, toys that were put out by Playmates. So I wonder if that was one. Wouldn't be surprised. That digging thing that Shredder's got there, that probably was that for sure. Part of the Technodrome.
Don't let it throw you, guy. You sort of get used to it after a while.
That's a cool joke there, reference that. Every episode, the Shredder gets away, and the Turtles live to fight another day, because without that, there'd be no more cartoon series. That's the main villain. I think much later on, they tried to switch it up with some alien guy that was the villain, which I didn't care for.
Totally violent. Yeah, I liked it too. Somehow, I've got the feeling he'll cross our paths again. Somehow, I've got a feeling he's right.
I like this here. They do this often in cartoon shows or even in movies. He's walking off into the sunset. Of course, the original thing is riding off into the sunset, but, that's okay. Walking off is just as good. It's just as badass. But that is the Casey Jones episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's one of my favorites. I really enjoyed revisiting it. I hope you did as well. And please don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thanks for letting your geek flag fly with Mad About Superheroes. We'll see you on the next one.